that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, so like Brian said, with tiling there is a lot of different trades involved, and one of the first ones is obviously our designers. And when I was looking at what I'd sort of theme this around, it's actually that we are designing to fail at the moment. So our designers, they have no training in waterproofing, yet they are the ones that are going through, providing relevant information. I mean, they're not our plans, going through to consent. So because they don't have the knowledge of the training, like the TANZ team training, they probably haven't even been to a lot of places where the shower's been put in. They probably wouldn't have seen it even. They rely on manufacturer information. That's pretty much where the knowledge is at the moment. Those details are put onto the plans and they're put into the council. The building review officers, they won't have any training, or most won't, on what good showers will look like. So they won't know how thick the membrane's meant to be, they won't know where they should be using water stops. Then knowledge is a lot broader. Like I said, they've got a lot of things to look at. So we're really relying on those initial drawings. Council drawings are then consented and they go out to site. When the inspectors go out to look at the building and they inspect it, they are looking for compliance and with the documents on site. So those drawings that have been done with very little knowledge, with very little backup, are now a document that's on site and being brought to. And that's where we get to the 89% of failures are installation. So that tells us that our products are pretty good. You know, we're not having product failures very often at all. Yet we're still having a horrific amount of failures. Again, it stems from that really early stage in the design. This example here is a level entry shower. It differs quite substantially from the detail that Richard showed this morning. You'll see there's no water stops there, there's nothing to stop water travelling underneath that tile and out. That detail is a detail from one of our major waterproofing manufacturers. That is their standard detail. That is what we're relying on. How do we feel about that? Is it a bit scary? This is what we're using, this is what we're relying on, and it's not right. What should it look like? It should have a water stop in there. It should have something to do that. So why don't we see water stops in New Zealand? It's part of our documentation, it's definitely in the best practice guide, it's in AS 3740, the other documents that we look at. We've seen documentation going back into 2015 saying that we should be using water stops, yet we're not seeing them used in New Zealand. And in fact, until TANZ and GJ's joined to work on this, there were no water stop manufacturers in New Zealand or bringing products in. They just weren't there. One of the issues that makes it hard for the manufacturers and our tilers, is that there is a belief out there that water stops are not required. Okay? So, and I've heard this from suppliers directly, they will encourage their tilers to use water stops, but they will not tell them they will have to. Because if they tell them they will have to, they will go to a different supplier. Not very encouraging to do the right thing. If we looked at, I talked to Rob from Wet Seal in Hamilton this morning about an example that he has. He went through the TANZ team training. He made a decision after that I'm going to do this right. I can see why it needs to be done. I'm going to do it right. So Rob, passionate guy, goes out to one of his builders, says, look, we're going to use water stops. We're going to put water stops in here. He was told by the builder, if you want to use water stops, you'll have to go somewhere else. You won't be getting our business. Okay, so he lost around $40,000 of work just by saying, I'm going to do the right thing. Okay, so that's where the encouragement comes from, or why we're not seeing them push through. They're definitely required, they definitely work, but why we don't have consistency through the industry to say, hey, we're going to use water stops, spot fixing is bad, we need to do something about the penetrations, we need to put our waste in the right place, we're not going to get progress. So that's where we're sort of, TANZ is pushing, MB is sort of pushing as well and helping us through that. But we need everyone in this room to start working together as well and say, hey, we need to draw a line in the sand. So how bad is it with the detailing? This is a drawing from a consented set of plans through a council, not Auckland. And if we were to look at that, what's wrong with it? They've used timber substrate for the nib, so the timber's going to move, it's going to break the membrane. The shower screen's in the centre of the nib, so the water's going to run down the face of the screen, it's going to go onto the top of the nib, it's then going to go underneath the nib, or underneath the shower and out, where there's no waterproofing. There's no tapes or bond breakers being specified. There's no water stops to prevent water from going outside of the nib. There's no waterproofing outside the shower. And that's just from one little detail. So, and you've got to remember, consented plans. These have gone through designers, quality control, they're now on site to be built. So this is where we're sort of falling short. So solutions. So one thing we sort of look at in the tile industry is manufacturers and different people have education programs that are specific to what they are doing for their products. But there's overlying sort of philosophy around waterproofing, you know. You require water stops in all systems. It's how you might apply that, the specific membrane to it. All penetrations need to be sealed. It doesn't matter what sort of product you're using, it's the same. So what we'd like to do, or what TANZ is wanting to do, is actually produce a set of libraries or details that have those basic sort of principles over them. Now on your desk, you'll see these 3D printed tags. Those have an NFC chip in them, so if you wipe that over your phone, it will send you to a link which will take you to the TANZ library. So in the library we have put in, I think we have about 40 or 50 details in there now. These are general details that apply those basic principles, you know, that could be the, I guess, the start. Those are the bare minimums that you should know how to detail. We're growing that all the time, so we're going through, we're drawing them up, we're getting them checked. There's how-to videos in there. But we are looking for suggestions on what you guys need from us, because we can do that. So if there's particular details that are challenging, we can go through and find those for you and research them. If you're wanting them in other formats, we can look at getting them in DWG or whatever format that you need to be done in, so we can do that. So that's kind of the traditional sort of details. Traditional details are great, they're good for people to read. But this showers, or shower waterproofing is a lot about how we sequence them. You know, there's a lot of components that go on at different times. So how do we show that? So this is something we're looking at developing. Again, we're wanting feedback from you guys. Is this a great thing, or are we heading in the right direction? So this is a computer program or a web-based app that we're looking at developing. So it shows a general shower at this stage. It has navigation down the bottom, so we can click through. You can see the floors dropping down there. There's a little note of what's happening. Next detail is the studs are moving across. We have the details coming up that are appropriate to that. We have the knobs going in for the horizontal fixing, which is required. Caddies going in, where they go. Again, the detail comes up. You have the jig book going on. And it kind of provides you an ability to track through what's going on. Good things like that. It shows how the leak-proof flange fits to the screed. We can zoom in on it because it's actually a live model. If we put a VR headset on it, you can actually walk around it. So it would be like linear. You can also go back. So if you want to go back, how does that fit? We can go back and look at it closer. This is where it starts to get complicated. So it's reasonably straightforward until here. But in the shower, we've now got our tanks going on around the outside. And the next step is the stops will come through. So it shows the water stops going down in that order. So we have to put that outside on first. Then the water stops go down. So the detail for it over there is a 2D detail. But looking at that 2D detail, it gives you no idea how that sequences around the tape on that end of the detail. Yet that's a crucial part of keeping it waterproof. So that's where this is much more useful. How I see this being used is getting it out to our designers. So I would like to push out into the designer network and start educating them on what it looks like, where the details are, how the sequencing goes together. Clarifying for building inspectors, what is the sequencing, when should it be going on? Again, very early stages. You can see in here we've got the membrane going down now, and the next step would be the water stops on the wall. So again, there's sequencing around that that's not completely obvious all the time. And in fact, as much as tiling has been my life for the last 4 years, I still got parts of this not quite right, and Brendan had to point me in the right direction and say, hey, this happens first. So that's what we end up with. So how do we feel about having something like that as a training tool available to our designers, our tilers, our building supervisors, our building inspectors? You know, is this something we've been missing?
Yeah. Will you take it to the tiling stage as well eventually, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. This is a proof of concept almost, you know. So we don't want to go through and develop it if it's not something you guys are after. But I think there's a lot that we can show around detail of the plumbing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Being able to, at the moment, you can zoom in on different details, but then being able to click and zoom in or click and see what different components are. But I mean, if you could make it up for entire systems of what product. You know, be keen to work with suppliers and say, hey, we could do one that lists all your products and how that's made as a complete system.
That's right, because I think of all proof industries, I don't know if they're in the room here today, but they come up with these wonderful flanges, but they also design these tile insets that completely negate the way it should be done. And then you've got tilers building up new tiles with absurd amounts of adhesive, for example, which has just ruined everything that's gone before it.
Yeah, it was interesting. We had some really good conversations even with Jeff around this and saying, oh, we don't actually see that at a lot of times. So it's interesting to look at that. So yeah, look, that's something that we're looking on. We think it's pretty exciting. It's a new way of getting it out there. Like I say, we can get it out to those designers because it's a lot easier to give a designer a login that they can go in and have a look and see how it's done and then go, right, I need to put those details into our consent plans, you know? Whereas if you were to, you've got to try and take them out there at the right time and get them to see us and yeah, so that's what we're working on. So look, over lunch maybe if you want to catch up with me and give me some feedback on how you think we could use that better or what parts of the bathroom we could be using or whether there's other parts of the building that we should be looking at as well. Is that interesting? Well, that's my little thing on details. So yeah.